So this is for a traditional French seam. Now this one is sewn very differently to the rest. So with most seams, you sew it where the fabric is right sides together, wrong side is facing up at you. With the French seam, traditional version, you start with the right side facing up, but you pin the fabric wrong sides together. And as you can see, I've labelled it there with pen. So wrong sides together, right side is facing up at you. So for French seam, I'm going to be doing this one at 1 centimetre. So we bring our needle down, line the fabric up with the edge of 1 centimetre, press a foot down and we start to sew. You're going to sew a normal plain seam to start off with. So this one we're going to do it at 1 centimetre. Keep going. Reverse at the beginning and end again like we've done before. Bring the needle up and out. Now for the next step, we're going to use some fabric scissors and we're going to cut down the seam allowance. So using some fabric scissors, you're going to cut down the seam allowance, leaving about 1/2 centimetre. So you're going to cut the seam allowance roughly in half, like so. You're now going to bring it over to the iron. Now, right side facing up, you are going to press the seam allowance to one side using your iron, getting the nose right in the seam as you can see there, and then smoothing over the top. Now that was done on the right side. You're going to turn it over to the wrong side of the fabric and press it again, so it looks a little bit back to front at the minute. Now you're going to fold it along the seam like so, encasing that seam allowance inside. You're going to fold it and we're going to iron that flat now. So press along the seam. So you should have the wrong side of the fabric facing up at you now. We're now going to pin at 90 degrees again along the seam. And you're going to bring it over to your sewing machine. You're going to line it up with the 1 centimetre seam allowance again. So in total, this version uses 2 centimetres, as you've got the 1 centimetre from before plus 1 centimetre again. So in total, it's 2 centimetre seam allowance. You're going to stitch at 1 centimetre. Remember to reverse at the beginning. And it's like sewing a normal plain seam again. So line up the fold with the 1 centimetre. Keep sewing using a straight stitch. And reverse at the end. And then we're going to trim the threads off and take the pins out. Now you can see we're back to having wrong side of the fabric facing up at us like you would do with stitching a normal seam. And when you finish the finished seam, you have the right side of the fabric on the right side of the seam. Once you've done that, you're going to bring it over to your iron and you're going to get the nose right in the crook of the seam like so, and then push it to one side. You would do this on the wrong side of the fabric first, turn it over, and then on the right side of the fabric over the top. So you have your French seam now on the wrong side of the fabric where it should be, and from the right side it looks like a normal seam. Now there's two things to bear in mind when doing a French seam. One is your seam allowance. So whatever your seam allowance is, you need to divide by 2. So say if it's a 2 centimetre seam allowance, you sew 1 centimetre, then 1 centimetre again. Or say if it's 3 centimetre seam allowance, you sew 1.5 and then 1.5 again. But the number of the seam allowances needs to add up to the finished seam allowance. And that is your French seam.